Welcome to Crime Most French, a fortnightly podcast covering intriguing cases carried out on French soil. Researched and narrated by Cedric and rudely interrupted by me, Melanie. We're the true crime podcast on the Alliance. Crack open le vin and let the mayhem commence.
The case this week is the disappeared from Boutiers. Until 1972, Boutiers-Saint-Trojan was an anonymous village without anything happening out of the ordinary. On Christmas Day, 1972, that changed forever. A whole family disappeared without a trace.
Wow, a whole family.
A whole family.
Okay, that was my first Christmas, 1972.
Yes, that's true.
I was a whole 6 days
6 days old, yes.
It wasn't me, Governor.
Boutiers-Saint-Trojan is a village on the outside of Cognac.
Ah.
That's the one from the beverage.
I see, so we're talking somewhere very close. We could almost lean out the window and touch it.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah.
It touches Cognac, so it's about 25 minutes from here.
Okay.
By country roads. It lives in the shadow of its large neighbor, and when I say large, I mean 17,000, I think, which is the second largest city in the area, but still quite small.
Mm.
And doesn't have any trace in history, really. Nothing ever happened there. People live a quiet life, leaving no trace in the record.
Sounds very idyllic.
Yes, like most villages around here. I don't know how big it is, I didn't look it up, but it's quite small. Or it was quite small. That changed on Christmas Day 1972. That night, we're talking Christmas Eve, a thick freezing fog was covering the area, making the road slippery and dangerous. And no matter how good a driver you were, there was a visibility of 3 meters and ice patches everywhere. So driving was a very, very bad idea.
We do get a lot of fog here.
Yes. Oh, yeah, sometimes you don't see the other side of the courtyard, and it's
Yeah.
not a huge courtyard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like that, but possibly even worse and freezing.
Yeah. I mean, we even had fog yesterday, for goodness sake.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but because it's along the Charente, it's on the other side of the Charente from Cognac, so it's super humid.
Yeah.
That's why it was freezing. At about 2 a.m., Jacques Méchineau, 31, Pierrette, 29, his wife, Eric, 7, and Bruno, 4, get into the family car, a dark red Simca 1100.
Mm-hmm.
It means nothing to you, but I remember those cars when I was a kid. That was a very, very common car. I think it was the most sold car in 1973 in France. Simca was bought by Talbot, I think, in the early 80s, and then very shortly after, Talbot was bought by Peugeot.
Oh, I see.
So that no longer exists as a brand.
Well, Peugeot pretty much owns everything now, doesn't it? It's either Fiat or Peugeot.
Well, now that they have merged with Fiat, they
Yeah.
pretty much own half the brands in Europe and half the world, I guess, because the other half is by Volkswagen.
Volkswagen, yeah.
And which includes our US brands like Buick and
General
Dodge,
Motors.
and all those brands are now owned by European companies. So yes, Peugeot owns everything, including Citroën and all that.
Yeah.
The family had spent Christmas Eve with the Fontanillas. It's the name of the family.
Mhm. So it's quite a young family.
Yeah, he's 31, she's 29, they have 2
Yeah.
young kids. So yes, they've probably been married for 7-8 years, something like that. So
Yeah.
yes, it's a fairly young family. The 2 men work together at the Saint-Gobain glass factory. There's a big Saint-Gobain glass factory in Cognac. Well, Chateau Bernard, technically speaking.
Oh, yes.
Again, suburbs of Cognac.
Yeah.
Where we go sometimes to the supermarket. They get along well. The 2 kids fall asleep at the back of the car instantly. You know how kids are. You can carry them to the car and they don't even wake up.
Yeah.
They were exhausted, obviously, by the night because they had been eating probably from like 6, 7 to 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And also they were super excited because it's Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So they were looking forward to the presents.
Generally, most people celebrate, have their bigger celebration on Christmas Eve.
It
In
depends on the
France.
families. I don't know how common it is. I have no idea. In my family, yes.
Mhm.
In my family, it's like the Germans. It's more like the 24th.
Yeah,
But I don't know if it's normal.
I see.
I have no idea. Because I've never done it with any other family, so I really don't know.
That's true.
But yeah, in my family, it's 24th in the evening. That is the big thing. And then there's a big lunch the next day.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's normal. I have no idea. Officially, no. Officially, it's the 25th. That's
Okay.
important. So the kids fall asleep. The Fontaneras are slightly worried when they see the road conditions that the Michelot are going to drive in. But the trip is only 3 kilometers. So they essentially just need to cross the river and they're home. So they say, well, you'll be okay. You can't really have an accident on 3 kilometers. So they let them go. And that's the last time ever anybody sees them. They completely disappear in the night.
Okay.
This case is very special in French history because it is the only time ever that an entire family disappears and leaves no trace whatsoever. Absolutely nothing. The car is never found. There's no bank account activity. There's no note left, like a suicide note or anything like that. And they're never ever seen again. That's never happened. There's always something left behind.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing this time.
No skid marks on the road, nothing.
No skid marks on the road, no trace of an accident, no trace of a car, absolutely nothing.
Weird.
Yes, that's a very, very special case. People often compare it to the Dupont-Ligonnès murders. You know, the guy who killed his family, buried them under the stairs or the
Shot
courtyard.
his dogs, yeah.
Shot the dogs and then disappeared, and people are still looking for him, thinking he's still alive because he's never been found.
Yeah, I think they thought they found him
Or
about 6 or 7 months ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
regularly, he's apparently seen in places, but it's never him. But it is kind of like that, except that in that case, they found the family under the stairs and the dogs. Whereas in this case, there's really nothing, not a trace. Nobody knows what could have happened to them.
Yeah, that is weird.
It is several days before the gendarmerie is alerted by Pierrette's brother, so the wife's brother.
Yeah.
Because he has no news from the family, which is kind of strange around Christmas.
Yeah, it's true.
They go to the family house, they break the door. In the house, they find the Christmas presents for the kids at the bottom of the tree.
Oh no, that's so heartbreaking.
They find turkey and oysters in the fridge, ready for Christmas lunch.
Oh no.
And they find the checkbook on the table. Remember, it's 70s, so people still use checks mainly to pay for things instead of credit cards, which didn't exist.
They still pay for checks here.
Yeah, well, and old people who have the habit of doing it still do, yes. The gendarmerie searches cupboards, armoires. They find nothing missing. All the clothes are there. There's no missing suitcase, like they would have left the country. Obviously, the family had planned to come back, because you have the presents and the food for the next day. Well, more like later in the day, because at that point it's 2 a.m. when they disappear. But anyway, so in the house, there's also no trace of anything. No reason why they would have disappeared.
So absolutely no sign that they ever made it back after this journey.
No sign they made it back. No sign they hadn't planned to make it back. Just nothing.
No.
They just disappeared in the night. In the months that follow, the gendarmerie take the search fairly seriously because it's a big case at the time. They survey the area using helicopters very soon after their disappearance. They dredged the Charente, the nearest river, that the family had to follow to get home.
Yeah.
They even searched local ponds and lakes, where there's a bunch of them. They expect to find at least a car if they had an accident.
Yeah.
Because how does a car disappear? It's quite big.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say that even if they had gone into the Charente, in this stage in the river, it's meandering. It's not super fast.
No, it's slow. Well, the Charente is never fast, really. No. It's a very slow river. But yes, what they were expecting to find
was a car at the bottom of...
skid marks or a trace of an accident, like a car went off the road and then the car in the river. They find none of that. There's just no trace of it. They followed the road many, many, many times, and they saw no trace of an accident. They dredged the river on nearly 20 kilometers, not a trace of the car, just nothing. It's gone. Not finding any clues, the gendarmerie start digging into the family's past, thinking that maybe something happened that would explain why they disappeared, like, I don't know, they met the mafia or something. Jacques is known for being a hard worker. He does all he can to provide for his family so that they don't lack anything. He's even known for fixing people's cars in the evening because he was apparently good at fixing cars on the down low, so no taxes, to provide a little bit more for the family.
Yeah.
On the surface, the family is perfect as well. The couple doesn't make any waves. They're not They had never any encounter with the authorities or anything like that. None of the neighbors is saying that they were nasty neighbors. They didn't have barking dogs. Nothing.
So basically, if they'd been on the go now, they would have the perfect, Instagram pictures.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, of the holidays and the kids and yeah, exactly. They had been married since January 1965.
Mm-hmm.
The kids are polite, and really there's just nothing. But under the surface, there was something going on. Pierrette was planning to leave Jacques to start a new family with a neighbor.
All right,
Maurice Blanchon.
So it is really like the Instagram family.
It is exactly like the Instagram family, yes. She was planning to leave him and leave the boys with Jacques. So Maurice Blanchon is still alive. He's 80 today. Work colleagues of Jacques also report that he wasn't that perfect after all. So the neighbors didn't know, but the work colleagues had a different version of him.
Okay.
He was known to be nervous and not really needing to be pushed too much to snap. He would get angry fairly easily for very small things. One colleague reports a worrying conversation he had with Jacques a while earlier. He said that Jacques told him that if his wife was cheating on him, everybody would die.
Oh, no.
He said he knew places and nobody would ever find anybody.
Oh, no.
Which, in retrospect, is worrying because that now sounds like there was a plan somewhere.
Oh, dear.
So that doesn't mean that he did anything, but it's a worrying conversation.
No, you don't have that kind of... Who has that conversation?
But yeah, I guess. Yes. And there were lots of places where he could have hidden at least bodies. In the area, for example, there's abandoned quarries, stone and sand.
Yeah.
I've been in some of them with the Land Rover Club, because some of them you can go with cars. Technically, you're not allowed to, but you can. There's room for cars.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be roads going through the quarries.
Okay.
And they have, like all quarries, big holes because the ground caved in and this kind of stuff. So there's water holes all over the place. There's also lots of ponds and lakes because it's a fairly humid area.
Mm-hmm.
So there's also legendary, I've never seen one, Templar tunnels all over the Charente.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know if you remember. No, maybe you weren't there.
The woman that was talking about the tunnels all the way down from Vendée.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yes, I was there.
You were there, yeah. So they allegedly exist. Some of them have been found and filled. But anyway, they could be a place as well. Some people say you could hide a bus if you wanted to. Right. So there's lots of holes everywhere.
I know Simca's cars are quite boxy, but I don't think they're as big as a bus.
No, but there's massive holes everywhere. Yeah. Also, leaving the country is not impossible because Jacques apparently was known for being very fond of Australia and really wanting to move to Australia, but couldn't afford it at the time. Mm-hmm. So it could be that maybe he took the family there because remember 70s, so security at airports is very, very light, if any. You could probably sneak out to, I don't know, Germany and take a plane from Germany to Australia or something like that, and nobody would ever know.
That's true.
Maybe. It's also a possibility for the disappearance. But of course, that still doesn't explain anything. They're just possibilities.
They're still MIA, I mean.
Yes. It appears that according to some of Jacques' colleagues, he had learnt about Pierrette's affair a few days before that night. Mm-hmm. That information worried the gendarmerie because now they have a motive. Yeah. So not only they have possibilities, weird conversations, but they also have a motive. They tried to question people to find out if really he knew. Mm. And he did. And Maurice Blanchon, the lover of Pierrette, did an interview in a newspaper this year. And he explained that, yes, he had been warned by one of his friends that Jacques knew. Okay. And the next time he saw Pierrette, she had strangulation marks and a black eye. And that was the Wednesday, and I think Christmas Eve was the Saturday, something like that, or Friday. So very, very shortly before they disappeared.
So it's more and more looking likely that something really bad has happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the family knew about it as well because he heard about it from Pierrette's sister, as far as I remember. So some of the family was aware of what was going on.
Mm.
Also, he reported this year that Jacques, learning what was going on, disappeared twice on the same day for several hours.
Okay.
And he explained it saying that he went to visit an army friend in Vendée.
Right, so maybe he was scouting for locations to...
Well, that's what comes to mind, yes.
Yeah.
Because that was on the day,
Mm-hmm.
it disappeared for a few hours, and 3-4 days later, the whole family disappeared.
Yeah.
That would give a good story.
Oh, that sounds like a recce.
Mm,
That totally sounds like, let's
Yes.
find a good location to... I mean, anyway.
Maurice also explained in that newspaper interview that on the day of the disappearance, on Christmas Day,
Uh-huh.
seeing that the family wasn't coming back, seeing that the car wasn't near the house,
Yeah.
he went to the house and got in. He had a key that Pierre gave him so he could sneak into the house without waking up the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jacques was working nights, sometimes overtime,
Okay.
to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Maurice would turn up
Yes.
at the house.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a key and went in. And he said he saw that the wood burner was off, which was very uncommon because then the house would get freezing
It's
very
really
quickly.
cold, yeah.
He contacted Pierrette's brother at a sports club where they all went.
Uh-huh.
They all had their habits there. And they went back to the house again together. So way to contaminate the potential crime scene. And that's why Pierrette's brother decided to contact the gendarmerie, as I mentioned earlier. But that was 2 or 3 days afterwards.
Uh-huh.
The search starts, and weeks, and then months, and then years go by. Still nothing is found. Regularly, the local press resurrects the story. For example, in January 73, the Charente-Libre, which is the main newspaper around here, summarizes the case
Uh-huh.
to remind people what happened, ask if there's any information, any witnesses. In December 74, they mention the case again, and they remind the readers that every year 20,000 men, 50,000 women disappear in France.
Wow.
15% I've never seen again. Never knew that statistic. That's frightening.
That's quite large.
Yeah. And by comparison, in 2009, the number is 59,000, 10,000 of which are considered worrying disappearances.
Wow.
So a lot of people disappear, apparently. Way more now than at the time.
Wow.
But yeah, so they're just one more statistics. The thing that makes it slightly different is that there's just no trace.
Yeah. And it's a whole family.
And it's the whole family, yeah. In September 1978, the Charente-Libre mentions the case again. They do that regularly.
Yeah.
They say that for most locals, the answer is in the abandoned quarries.
Mm-hmm.
Local legends lend weight to the hypothesis. Whole carts, apparently with 6 horses, sometimes disappeared in those quarries.
What?
In holes.
Wow.
That's what they're saying. You could hide a bus because you can lose a cart designed to carry big stones with 6 horses.
That's insane.
Just like that in those quarries.
That is insane. Poor horses, though.
Yeah. So that's what the locals are saying. Well, yeah, we know these big carts and horses disappeared at the time. We can easily lose a car.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, you're never going to take the Land Rover to any quarry ever again.
So, yeah, why not a car? Especially since Jacques was known to be fairly knowledgeable about the area.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's what local says. The Fontanillas, the family where they spent Christmas Eve, recalls that there was really nothing out of the ordinary on that night. They had spent the afternoon together. They had been shopping and stuff.
Right.
And the atmosphere was relaxed, so they didn't really suspect anything. The only thing was that now that they thought of it, the Micheneaux left very late. The Fontanillas needed to go to work at 4 a.m.
And they left at 2.
And they left at 2.
They've been as well just sleeping there and...
Well, that's the thing. They kind of tried to send them polite messages saying, we need to get up because we need to go to work. And they just wouldn't leave. And apparently they were saying that every time they were getting ready to leave, Jacques would start a new conversation. So in retrospect, they thought, was he trying to delay something that was going to happen by just never leaving?
Utterly
they don't know.
Confounding, isn't it? It's just...
Yeah. Over the next 40 years, the gendarmerie searched everywhere, as far as they're concerned. They sometimes were helped with the droughts that lowered the water levels in rivers and quarries and water holes. The car was never found, still, 40 years later. They used divers, and usually fishermen find the bodies and the cars and stuff because they're dog walkers of the rivers.
Yeah. Nothing. I mean, the Charent's quite well used, especially for tourism and
and it's not very deep.
No.
So when the levels go down like now because of a drought, they find cars. Usually they're there because of insurance scams.
Yes.
But they find them eventually because the waters go down. And that car is not in the river. There's just no way it can be in the river. It's just not there. What makes it even more creepier is the fact that it took place at Christmas. And that's what comes back regularly in the news, because when Christmas comes and the news are slow, they dig up the case again and mention it again, because that creepy family disappeared at Christmas.
Yeah. Well, the creepy story of the family, not the creepy family.
Well, yeah.
It's not the Addams family.
No. In 2003, national newspapers read the story this time. So it's made it
to the full press.
It took nearly 40 years, but it made it to... In fact, no, it took 40 years, but it made it to national news.
We're not just talking Sud-West and Charente.
No, they were talking main newspapers and TV channels as well. They found the first TV channel in France also relayed the story in February 2003 for the first time. In November 2011, on the family's request, to try to solve the mystery with new technology that was now available.
Yeah.
Also because there was a creation of a scientific police center nearby, they start searching again.
Right.
So the gendarmes and the soldiers search the area like centimeter by centimeter. They re-interview everybody. They follow all the leads that the neighbors, the family and the colleagues mention. They use ground-penetrating radars, they use sonars, they use divers, spelunkers. They use everything they can possibly use to search again, because they decided that the search in the 70s was a bit late. They didn't really have the technology, they didn't really invest the time, so they do it seriously now.
I wonder if they could have used drones.
Well, they used helicopters at the time. I don't know what they used.
Well, I was thinking drones underground, but I don't know how this...
No, they wouldn't. The car wouldn't be in an underground tunnel. It would be in a water hole.
Okay.
Because otherwise it would have been found.
Yeah.
Because people go in those tunnels, but you can't go into the water hole. But they tried everything they could this time. They spent a long time with a lot of people, with all the technology they could have, to search again everywhere, and they still can't find bodies or the car. They found bodies on the way, they found cars on the way, but not the ones they were looking for.
So they were clearing up other cold cases?
Essentially, yes, they did. They cleared a few cold cases because they found bodies that they couldn't find before. They even find a 1970s Simca 1100. So everybody was, so it was dark as well. But the color, because it was in a hole since the 70s, had a bit gone. But it was a dark color. So they said, we found the car. Then they checked the engine number and the reg plate, and it wasn't the car. So they still haven't found the car.
Well, you said it was quite a common car at the time.
It was the most sold car the next year. So it was very common. Once again, it makes it to national news. Still nothing. It's then picked up by crime and mystery radio shows and podcasts and stuff. Still nobody has any more information. It seems impossible that the whole family could disappear without a trace, because if they were alive, and for example the kids, they would make contact with someone, because the kids would be like nearly 50. The oldest one would be 40... Well, it would be over 50 by now.
Well, they have to be older than me.
Exactly, because they were 7
50s.
and 4 in 72.
Yeah.
So they would be in their 50s.
Yeah.
One of them in his late 50s.
Yes.
Surely he would have made contact with someone at some point. He would have heard the story. He would know who he is, because he would remember. If You remember what happened to you at 7.
Yes, yes.
So
definitely.
if you're told, oh, now you're called something else, you would remember that. At
Yeah.
some point, you would look into it.
Yeah.
So, no, there's just no contact. So nobody can understand how that's possible. As far as everybody's concerned, they have to be dead. They can't possibly be alive.
Yeah, it doesn't look good, does
So
it?
the idea that they might have moved to Australia or
No.
somewhere, it doesn't work.
No.
Somebody would have made a contact and say, okay, yeah, well, we're here, we left, and now we live here.
After
and
50 years,
you can stop looking for us, and that would be it.
Somebody would have said something, surely.
Yeah. On the 12th of October last year, the case resurfaces. Philippe Portrait, a local retired man, keen on his mushrooms, apparently. I guess that's the dog walker of the forest here.
You do at this time, and well, maybe not. In about a month's time, you see people.
Tons of people in the woods,
you see people, and they're so secretive. They go in with their bags and their baskets.
Oh, you don't want people to know where the mushrooms are.
No, because seps. I mean, if you live in other countries, if you see French seps, they're very expensive.
Yes.
I mean, they're amazing. Cedric doesn't like them, but I mean, I love them, and it's always a great kind of source of pride for one of his aunts who they have a lot of land out in Corrèze. Yes, thank you, and they have lots of seps. Oh, lovely. I'm drooling now. I have to stop. Stop talking about seps.
So that guy looking for mushrooms in the woods, under leaves. Niamata finds a bunch of bones. So that's very close to us. That's 10 minutes away now.
Yeah.
The press and the gendarmerie come very quickly, obviously, on bones, and everybody connects the dots. So the equivalent of the Amy dates the remains to about 40 years old.
Okay.
So that matches the period. So everybody gets excited. Maybe they found whoever that was. DNA tests are done on the remains of a man. They find a hip, a leg, and a few vertebrae and a few ribs.
Right.
They also find part of a skull of a kid that looks like 7 to 13 years old.
Okay, so that's roughly around about the oldest
child. Kid, yeah. So first the local lab is charged of the DNA test, but then when they start suspecting that it could be them, they take it way more seriously. So it's sent to the main lab in Paris.
Okay.
Nobody wants to fuck up
at
that point because they've been looking for these people for 40 years.
Yeah. 50.
By that point, 50 years, yes. Yeah. So they wonder who would have dumped bodies there anyway, even if it's not them. Where's their bodies there? The area is known for being fairly busy with walkers and cyclists. Yeah,
there's quite a big popular walking place around about Mata.
They think it's kind of weird that suddenly bones are appearing.
Yeah.
That smells like somebody dumped them very recently from somewhere else. So could it be that they were killed somewhere, buried somewhere, and then moved because, I don't know, roadworks were going to discover the bones and they were moved to somewhere else?
Yeah, or somebody was renovating an old house or something.
Yeah, 15 kilometers away or something like that. Maybe. So they take it very seriously. Also, if the remains are presumably Jacques and the oldest kid, where are the other two?
Yeah.
There should be 4 of them.
Yeah.
So November... the Saint-Jean gendarmerie, now in charge of the case, which is still open.
Oh, I'm sorry, the Saint-Jean. Okay, right, yeah.
Well, Mata.
Yes, true.
That's here.
I mean, what's the population of Mata? About 3,000?
If that, yes. Yeah, 3,000, something like that. They notify all local mayors and ask them if there's any unusual work that's been done somewhere that maybe some workers have disturbed the grave, and to avoid the trouble of having to call the gendarmerie, delay the work and explain themselves and all that, just move the body maybe.
Yeah, there has been an awful lot of they've been running fibre, so there has been an awful lot of digging.
So they're saying that maybe something happened and they decided, if we'll dump them in the wood, we don't want any trouble. Nobody is aware of anything special. So again, no explanation for how these bones appeared there.
So we don't know who they are then?
No, we don't know who they are, but they are not the Michonneau family. That's all we know.
Okay. Mm.
But we have no clue who these bones belong to. So there are a few theories going around at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
One is a collective suicide murder. We know that Jack was pissed off that his wife was going to leave him.
Yeah.
We know that he had said that he would know how to dispose of bodies and they would never be found.
So he's one of these, if I can't have Pierrette, then
Nobody
no
can.
one
Yes, exactly.
can.
So could he have killed his family and then killed himself somehow?
What a monster.
Yes, that was the hypothesis that the gendarmerie went on for a very long time. Because to them it was the most likely explanation for no trace, really. Especially after he had these weird conversations with colleagues at work.
Mm.
Some neighbors don't think it's likely. With the super thick fog at night, it would have been impossible to drive as far as the quarries, they say. Because, of course, driving home was only 2 kilometers, but going to the quarries was a lot further.
Mm.
So they're saying there's no way they would have made it in these road conditions all the way to the quarries. So it's not possible. So the neighbors are not convinced that could have happened.
No, because, if you're driving up to the quarries, you're not using kind of like main roads that have lights.
Yes.
You're not.
There would have been no lights whatsoever at the time.
Yeah.
And it would have been totally dark. And with the visibility, your headlights would have made a white wall in front of the car.
Yeah.
So they're saying they could have made it home, but there's no way they could have made it to the quarries.
And you're talking 72, and there's no GPS. So
No, there's no GPS and no fog lights, no nothing on cars. So it's just they say it can't have happened. But the gendarmerie says that yes, it's not easy, but if it did. Then definitively water holes in the quarries are where they are. Also, another theory is some kind of exile to Spain, Australia, or even Vendée.
Yeah, exile to Vendée.
Yeah, despite the fact that there was no activity ever seen on the family's bank accounts, there was very little money left. There was just enough for the next month's rent.
Right.
According to acquaintances, Jacques had at least 50,000 francs stashed away on the account.
Right.
That he didn't pay taxes on, of course. All that money had been withdrawn in the days before that night.
Right.
So they're saying, they took the money and they disappeared somewhere abroad.
Each of these theories are starting to look plausible. That's very annoying.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's not going anywhere. Because, there's lots of possibilities. And because there's no trace, no proof, no nothing, they're all likely or they're all possible. So now they're saying, well, maybe he took the money out and took them anywhere really on the planet at the time. They could have driven to any country in Europe, taking a plane to anywhere on the planet. Yeah. There would be no trace of it. So, again, I find that difficult I don't think that's likely because over time, somebody would have thought he would be dead first. Because if he was 31 in 1972, he would be 100 or close by now.
No, he'd be around about our parents' age.
That's true. He would be in the late 70s. His kids would be in their 50s. Somebody will have talked at some point. I can't believe that if they left, even Pierrette would have talked to someone at some point. She would have said. Because obviously they all would have gone against their will.
Yeah, but I think the likelihood of perhaps he didn't take his kids, and that's why.
Oh, you're saying they killed the kids?
Yes.
And left with the wife?
No.
Killed the kids and the wife, and then
just left
somewhere. I guess that would be possible. Yes. In which case, yes, maybe he wouldn't have talked to anyone about it.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to admit, that you killed your.
Yeah.
And that's the most likely if in fact it wasn't a murder suicide.
Yeah.
In my head.
Mm-hmm. Another theory is a murder. Could it be that Jack fixed stolen cars? Could it be that he was involved with some bad people in car trafficking?
Okay.
And somehow did something wrong to these people? He was known to have a short fuse. Could he have got into a fight with those people, for example, and they killed him and his family? In 2003, 30 years after the disappearance, a crow, remember episode 17, the tiger's eye? Crows are what anonymous letter sending people are called here. Sends 2 letters to the same person in the village And he says that the family was murdered at 3 a.m. on that night. And it mentions names. It mentions a fight. But the circumstances feel a bit far-fetched. It also mentions a very precise location where the bodies could be found.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's been searched. I didn't find any information about that. I don't think that the gendarmerie took it very seriously, so I don't know if they have searched it or not.
Well, surely it wouldn't have hurt them that much to go and have a look.
You would think so,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I couldn't find any mention of that. But after 2 letters, that's it. Nothing more.
That's it.
So
That too.
it disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't feel like somebody would want to do harm or something, because then normally they don't stop.
Yeah.
They do it for letters after letters after letters, as we've seen in episode 16.
Mm-hmm.
It feels a bit more like somebody who knew something and wanted it to be known.
Mm.
And then once they gave the information, then that was it.
Yeah.
But I don't know where that went. According to the gendarmerie, none of those theories really works well.
No, there's problems with all of them, yeah.
They say something else happened, and they just don't know what it is, and they can't find any trace of it. Normally, after 10 years after a disappearance, you can ask a tribunal to declare the missing people dead, so that the family can sort out their affairs and everything. But after 40 years, that still hasn't happened for that family, which is a bit strange.
Yeah.
They still receive their voting cards every time there's elections at their house, because they still own the house. The house is still there. They still own it officially. They still receive their cards. They still receive their mail. The old mayor from Boutiers, who's now retired, used to say that every time there were elections, that if they turn up to vote, come and get me. That never happened.
No.
But that was the joke at the time, because it was such a mystery for the locals.
Yeah.
And because they were still receiving their cards, because they're still registered to vote, the joke was that one day they might turn up and vote.
Yeah, it's crazy that the house is still...
Yeah, it's still there. It's still not used, and it's just technically theirs.
Yeah, wow.
So it's kind of weird.
Mm.
The gendarmerie recently announced that the case was now considered a cold case, and it had been assigned to the new cold case center in Paris, and they are going to start from scratch again.
Oh, okay.
Trying to find what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we are. Still no trace of it. Still no good explanation. Still no bodies. And it's now starting as a cold case.
Okay. So, let's face it. You don't have to be David Copperfield to vanish.